back in the cafe. I haven't recorded a podcast from a cafe in a while. It's great to be back. I got an amazing Americano next to me, and I'm going to be sharing how I went on 30 podcasts in around 3 months. This was in 2022 that I did this, and it resulted in me creating my TikTok, which resulted in me creating this podcast. And I think it's a cool story. And if you want to go on a lot of podcasts yourself, if you want to build links, if you're doing a big link building campaign, or you're doing some sort of campaign, or maybe you want to become more Googleable, this is a really good method. It's easy, it's cheap. You don't have to do a lot of work. It's something that I've done. And if I didn't have this show, if I didn't have my own platform, if I didn't have my Instagram or my TikTok, I would still be doing this. It really is good. If you don't have your own platform, it is great. And it's super low cost. Before I start, word of caution, I'm going to be sharing this podcast tool, which I am an affiliate of. The tool is, my affiliate URL is aipodcastmatcher.com. The real tool is called Podmatch. But if you want to check it out, use aipodcastmatcher.com. Like I said, huge power user of this site in the past, so I have no problem recommending it. But that is an affiliate link, aipodcastmatcher.com. That's the tool. That's the URL to go to. And here's why you might want to go on all of these podcasts. So if you look at a lot of the podcasts on YouTube, you'll see pretty low views for many of the episodes on YouTube. However, a lot of these shows have hundreds of listeners per show on streaming platforms like Spotify or Apple Podcasts. So you'll actually get some decent exposure from this, but YouTube will be misleadingly low. Here's some other pros. So you can get backlinks really fast because whenever you appear on a show, you can have them link to your website. The reason that I started doing this in the first place is I was doing a link building campaign for one of my sites, and I got lots of backlinks really fast like this, and it boosted my domain authority and it boosted my rankings. I met another guy, he didn't know anything about SEO or link building, and he was just going on podcasts through aipodcastmatcher.com. He got a new site to over 20 domain authority on Moz. I started doing the podcast because I was on a big link building campaign myself, and I started thinking, what would be a hidden place that I could get backlinks from? Well, I think podcasts. If I can go on a lot of podcasts really easily, I can get backlinks from each of the shows. Oftentimes these shows have their own sites, and it will be a good place to do that, and it worked. So if you're active building links for SEO, this is a pretty good method. Other pros, other reasons to go on lots of podcasts. Like I said, you get good exposure on streaming platforms. These shows will oftentimes have hundreds of listeners. This is cool. You become extremely Googleable. So actually, a friend just reached out to me. He's like, Edward, I got all this bad press recently. What should I do? And I recommended a tool to him to get some of the bad press taken down, which a friend of mine used. A friend of mine had a lawsuit. And if you Googled his name, this lawsuit showed up. And he used this tool called searchmanipulator.com. He paid, I think, $800 or $900, and he got the lawsuit removed from the site, and then it didn't show on Google. So he used that, but maybe that's not an option. And you want to have some bad press pushed down, or you just want to be more Googleable. You want media appearances to show up when people search your name. Lots of reasons to do that. You social proof yourself with investors. You social proof yourself with people you meet. It makes you look important. And so this is a good way to become Googleable, to become searchable. Networking is another amazing thing that happens with this. Very often, I would get connected to guests who are on other shows. These guests would want to hire me, or they'd want to start projects with me, or they'd give me advice, or I get connected with other host friends. And you can use this to basically trade up the chain. You can go on lots of small podcasts, and then eventually some hosts will be like, you are a great guest. I'm going to recommend you to my friend who hosts a bigger show. And then you go on bigger shows and bigger shows and bigger shows. And the hosts, very often I would have LinkedIn posts written about me by the hosts of the show. I had Edward Sermon. Here's what he said. Watch the episode. It was a great episode. And so I would get all these LinkedIn posts written about me. They would tag me, and then I would be able to repost it to my LinkedIn. That was cool too. If you have a podcast yourself, you can use aipodcastmatcher.com to also get guests. So if you're a host, you can use that to get guests yourself. I was using another tool called matchmaker.fm. That was my second most used podcast match. So the way that this works, I didn't even explain how this works. The way that this tool works is you fill out a profile, you say who you are, what you do, what you're working on, why you're interesting. You put up a preview video of yourself speaking, and then these tools algorithmically recommend you to hosts based on shared interests. And so with AI Podcast Matcher, you get connected to several hosts a day who are a good fit for you. And I said it's inexpensive, so you don't need the professional tier, which is $62 a month. So you can do $29 a month as the standard tier. So that's pretty cheap. And you get recommended to several hosts every day. And then Matchmaker.fm, I was actually just using the free tier on Matchmaker.fm. And with the free tier, you get to send 10 cold messages to hosts monthly. And those hosts are usually primed. They're on this site looking for guests. But I always preferred AI Podcast Matcher because I just appeared on way more shows because of it. And that was my goal. I wanted to appear on as many shows as possible. And through that, I went on 30 shows in 3 months. It was so wild. And the last thing that happened, the last pro, is you get public speaking practice. And that's actually the reason that I have my TikTok, that I have my Instagram, that I have this podcast. What happened was I would go on all these shows. I love talking to people. I would get very animated. And then at the end of the show, the host would be like, wow, you're the best guest I've ever had. You should start your own podcast. And I kept hearing this. And at the time that I was doing this and that I was going on all these shows, I was living throughout Romania, throughout Rome in Italy, and throughout Barcelona. And I remember it was specifically when I was in Rome. And 2 people in a week were like, you are the best guest I've ever had. You should have your own podcast. And around this time, I had a lot of friends. I mean, they'd been telling me for months that I should have a TikTok. But I met somebody at the Soho House in Rome, and he had lots of TikToker friends. And he was telling me how easy it is for them to post videos and get views. And I always thought that TikTok, you needed to put in all this time into TikTok to make a single video. I thought you had to do transcriptions yourself. I didn't know anything. And so he made it seem so easy. And all of these podcast hosts were telling me, like, you're so charismatic, you should have your own show, you should be out there. And instead of starting my own podcast, because if you don't have an existing platform, it's hard to drive views to a podcast. So instead of starting my own podcast, I started on TikTok, where the algorithms push you out automatically. And that TikTok led to me having all these viral videos, led to me working on my Instagram, led to me creating this podcast, because then I had my own platform to promote my podcast with. And that's why the Edward Show exists. That's why I have this show right now. It's because I made a platform first with which I could promote this podcast. And so I got all this public speaking practice. I got this confidence in myself that I would be an interesting speaker and an interesting host. And then I started TikTok. I think the pros for doing this are pretty thorough. If you are doing link building, if you want to be Googleable, if you want to just do networking pretty effectively, podcast hosts know tons of people. Honestly, $29 a month, it feels like a growth hack. For me, the reason, I'll be extremely clear on why I am not doing it anymore. I am not doing it anymore because lots of people know me now because of my videos, because of the TikTok and the Instagram. So I've said this on the show before, but right now, like, at least 2 people every day are reaching out to me to involve me in different things or try to hire me or all these things. And I don't respond to anybody because I'm full focused on putting out my product on compact keywords. So focused on that. And so I don't really respond to anybody. But if you're listening to the show and you don't have that and you want that, this is a good thing to use. And like I said, it's inexpensive. So best practices for AI Podcast Matcher: fill out your profile fully, use keywords, make yourself seem interesting, and then hosts find you, they reach out to you, but you can also match with hosts yourself. I think you get 3 matches every couple of hours. I have a whole guide on this. It's called How to Get on Podcasts as a Guest. So if you just Google how to get on podcasts as a guest, Edward Sturm, you'll find that guide. You can also go to my articles page, edwardsturm.com/articles, find my guide, and that's it. And so I'll leave you with this. So I started going on these podcasts because I was link building for Commit Club. I was driving backlinks to Commit Club. So going on podcasts, that's one great way to do it. I'll give you 2 other ways. Use featured.com. I've talked about featured.com in this show before. If you want to build backlinks, featured.com is great for building backlinks. I've actually recently appeared in Entrepreneur, in the Entrepreneur magazine, through featured.com. I was getting so many backlinks each month, maybe 15 backlinks a month. And I was going hard with featured.com. It connects you to journalists who are looking for guests. That's how featured.com works. And new publishers are signing up to this service all the time. Featured.com does not have an affiliate program. I have asked them several times to set one up. If they did, I'd be giving you an affiliate URL. They don't have it. But it's so good that I have to recommend featured.com. And then if you have a new site, boostbenchmark.com is great as well. That's an affiliate URL. It goes to, I don't even remember actually the name of the site, but it goes to this site, which submits you to a bunch of directories, and it will get your site to over 20 domain authority as well. It's fairly cheap too. And so those three things. And then, like I said, AI Podcast Matcher, if you want to get on lots of podcasts, which I really think is like a growth hack if you don't have an existing platform. If I wasn't doing what I'm doing now, I would still be using that service to go on lots of podcasts. It's also great for networking. So, all right, this is episode 316 of The Edward Show. This is my daily growth hacking, growth marketing podcast. I am recording this from a lovely, leafy green cafe. It is so nice in here. I wish all of you were here to join me. And thank you so much. I will talk to you again tomorrow. Bye now.